What's going on, you loyal listeners? Thank you for tuning in to the L Squared Podcast. I am your host here, Luke Larson, and joining me today, as per the usual, my lovely and loquacious special guest who will be assisting me in leisurely launching you into 11 old legs.
What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
I'm pumped. I'm
excited?
I'm very excited. I've been looking forward to doing this episode all week.
Wow, we're doing a list?
We're doing a list. Our top 2 films that we both asked each other to ask.
Here we go. It's going to be exciting, guys. There's going to be some surprises.
Yeah. So it's going to be exciting, you know. It took a long time to compile this list of 2 movies, one that we each picked. So let's,
Right.
Let's get to it.
This is really exciting. This is breaking news. Luke doesn't even in the slightest sound like he just signed a fat contract coming off NFL free agency. It doesn't sound like he's lost a step at all. Those past 10 podcasts, those last year, that was all in a contract year. So I have.
It's all real.
I have no doubt that it's only going to go downhill from here.
Oh, wow.
And that he's not going to age well.
Damn.
And that this was a huge mistake.
Wow.
So, we're going in today. We're going to give you a couple recommendations.
Yep.
So it is sort of exciting. I mean, in this time that we are, if you want to seek it out, you can go and you can actually see some movies that are out right now streaming, which is kind of fun. I definitely will be diving into a little bit of the way back here. I just don't have enough liquor in the house, so I need to when I make my rations run or when I go loot my neighbors.
Right.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stock up. And once I feel like I'm sufficiently, like I have a freezer and a fridge with enough booze, then I'm going to go ahead and get that. I'm going to stream that and support a little bit of Affleck. But we're not going to talk about any movies that are in theaters today. We did a little homework this week, and we got 2 movies coming at you that you may or may not have seen, maybe a little bit under the radar. A couple of they're a little older, within the last 10 years though. So what are we talking about today, man?
So this is a segment we do on the show from time to time. We call it Today's Assignments, and we each assign each other a film that the other person has not seen and one that we want to get their thoughts on, basically. So randomly, and a lot of times it's always just random. We're like, hey, have you seen this movie? No? Okay, go see it, And weirdly, the movies we each picked sort of have some similarities in a couple ways. But you asked me to watch Dogtooth, and I asked you to watch Timecrimes. So these are both foreign films. And Flex, yes, that's the reason I brought that up. Yeah, and so let's start off.
This film wasn't Casino Royale. That was my first guess. He's like, it's a foreign film. I can't think of it. And that was my first guess, and I'm actually really surprised that wasn't it. So
it was. That's up there for one of my favorite foreign films of all time.
Yeah,
right next to
pause
Mad
the podcast
Max
right now and just tweet at Luke what your guess is for his what you thought it. I mean that'd be a great exercise, and but yeah.
So let's dive into it here. So we'll start with the movie that I asked you to watch, Timecrimes from 2007. So. A little background on this film. So one of the interesting parts of the segment we do is we want to get each other's thoughts on films. You and I have talked a lot about movies over the years, and so we have a pretty good idea of each other's tastes. And the downside of that is there aren't a lot of movies that we see that we don't tell each other about.
Gotta dig deep.
Yeah, so we gotta dig deep. We gotta go in the way back machine. And this was a film that, for whatever reason, just kind of stuck in my subconscious. And this was a movie that I saw at 3 a.m, And this was kind of before I was really into movies. It was kind of before you and I met and our love exploded. And I mean that literally. We exploded love onto each other of movies. And so I'm always interested in that because, I thought about movies differently then. And for whatever, this one really stuck in my craw. So Timecrimes, the IMDb plot synopsis for this is: a man accidentally gets into a time machine and travels back in time nearly an hour. Finding himself will be the first of a series of disasters of unforeseeable consequences.
That's funny because that's also the synopsis for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah, it is. Even, pretty much.
That almost sums up the entire film there. To give you like my background with this, I hadn't seen this. I'd heard of it, and so this film's from 2007, so we should say that too. So that's what is it? 13 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I feel like this is one of those films. So if you've ever kind of gone down that rabbit hole, and I feel like many of you that obviously that are probably listening to this, or just like fans of film in general, like you see that first like real trippy time bending film in high school. I think for like me, it was I don't know, like probably something like stupid, like the Butterfly Effect or something like that. And you're instantly like, oh, I gotta watch every time travel movie ever. Or like Donnie Darko. Donnie Darko's a good one.
Perfect.
Where you're like, okay, I just want to I want to watch all these weird, cool films that are about time travel. And this one always, I feel like, pops up, but it's not really talked about. So I was kind of excited that you mentioned it, because I've always thought about watching it, but I've just, I've never, it wouldn't have crossed my mind otherwise. So thank you.
You're welcome. And this was one that, it just was always in the back of my head for a long time. And I also, part of my love for it too was that when I saw it at 3 a.m, I was in high school and it was on Netflix. Hammered, yeah. I just was not audible. And I don't even know if I really read the title of it. I just started watching it, so I had no idea what to expect. And so the twists and turns that came.
Times.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was just like, wow, I literally had no idea what was coming. And it was so much fun.
God. I did my taxes yesterday. You just think back to the days where you don't think about do I have time, or should I there's so many other things I could watch, where you just you just see a film that's 20 minutes deep on Stars, and you're just like, all right, never heard of it, just oh, cool,
absolutely,
let's go, Troy, here we go.
Yes.
Oh, God. Yeah, what a time.
That is the perfect encapsulation of my experience with this film. So, So you said you've heard of it and you've thought about watching it for a long time. So I'm excited to hear what your thoughts on this film are.
Okay. So, first off, the first 35 minutes of this film are more ludicrous than the idea of time travel itself. I don't know how to explain it any other way. Hector 1,
yes,
you're a fucking god. You're a legend. I don't know if you would have thrown me in Hector's shoes. I don't think me getting to the time machine, if you gave me 100 tries, I don't think I'd get there.
Really?
If I'm playing Dragon Quest. You have to go through the series of decisions that he makes.
Yes. And
I don't know, maybe I'm just more of a rational person, and maybe this is out of character, but I'm moving into a new place.
Yeah.
I'm checking out my surroundings. Okay, where's the neighbors? All right, here we go. the first thing you see, the first interaction you have with anyone in the new neighborhood is just woman in the woods, half naked, and you put on your fucking, your Sherlock Holmes, your Scooby and the gang, and you're just like, all right, let's go check it out. Like, I don't know. What do you think? Like, what is your impression of like the setup of this film before we get into like the time travel-y stuff?
It's bonkers. It's really weird. It's really like it is odd that the biggest buy of this film isn't the time travel and isn't what comes later. It's that
not even close.
He has an incredibly hot wife and just like comes home and
and he's already been blown.
Yeah, they just got done.
Breaking one off.
Yes.
And he sits down in his lawn chair, sees a naked woman in the woods, and he's like fucking Dirk Diggler. He's like,
he's ready to go.
He's like, I'll go again if you're ready. Like, if you want me to go again, I can go again. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah, and
this man's libido.
And it's like his wife is so hot and loves him so much. It seems like they have a good relationship, and they just made they just had fun. And then she's going to go into town because she lost his bet with him. And he's just like, oh yeah, we'll see you later. Because he wants her to get out so he can go try and find this naked woman. Like, you have this unbelievably attractive woman that has agreed to be with you the rest of her life and do things like you just did. And just, and not even to be like, I mean, honestly, if it was me, I'd be like, hey, what the... I'd tell her, like, what, did you see that? Look out there. Is that that person probably needs our help. But like, I'm glad you brought that up because that is the weirdest part of this film. But, with both of these films,
you're asked to buy in like quite a bit. Like,
quite
if you make it past this part, all of the time travel stuff and the paradoxes, like
that's
you're
fine.
You're good.
That will all fall into place.
I have no doubts you're on board.
Totally. But, with both these films, foreign, show a lot of good boob action.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, just unabashedly, like, boom, there are boobs, shirts off. And you're like, okay, cool. But, okay, so we bought in. We bought into the crazy world this guy lives in. And and so now we get into the time travel part of it. So I don't know
which is the second part.
Here's the second
part. Okay, so as an audience member, you got to buy in to this insane premise that he's just going out there. He's not going to call the authorities. He's just going to fucking.
Right. It's like a bad horror movie. Yeah.
And so, of course, like, he is attacked by this guy in, like, a pink mask, and, all of a sudden he's, like, loses his mind where he is in the world, and he just starts running, and, so you get to the point where he's found this complex, and there's loud music playing, and he doesn't knock, he just throws a fucking rock through the window like a Neanderthal, to get in, and all of a sudden he's in this crazy thing where he's found a time machine, I guess. He's on the walkie-talkie, whatever. But at this point, so I want to kind of skip to like he's gone in the time machine. He's committed.
So Hector 2?
Hector 1. We're still on Hector 1.
Okay.
He's gone in. He's trying to escape the guy in the mask who's
right.
Got the scissors.
Yep.
Shout out Jordan Peele. I wonder if you've seen this movie. Bet he has. But okay, so at this point, now you've accepted all this. You're good. You're there. The second half of the movie, before we get to the finale, is also a little bit infuriating because it's trying to explain time travel to like your uncle who watches like Sean Hannity every night. He's like, he just doesn't get it. and it's infuriating. Like, because I feel like anyone who's seen this movie is either like into time travel or weird movies or fun like movies, and he's just like immune to the idea, like just doesn't fucking get it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll let you kind of go from here, but
so basically so this is the breadcrumbs here. So he's with his wife, they're moving into a new house. As she's about to leave, he looks in his binoculars, sees a half naked woman, soon becomes a full naked woman. His wife leaves, he goes to investigate, and then as he's investigating, he gets attacked by a dude in a pink mask with scissors. So he runs away and finds himself in the time machine, gets out of the time machine, and realizes the time machine put him back in time about an hour and a half-ish. And then he's like, oh shit, what happened? And then they were like, yeah, he was basically like, did the guy who had the time machine, was he like, you have to make sure everything goes the same way it did to get you here?
Right. He just kind of like lays out the basic rules of time travel. He lays out just all the butterfly effect. Like, hey, if you go talk to yourself, you're gonna fuck a lot of shit up.
Right, and then he says,
if you go talk to anyone else,
you're gonna fuck a lot of shit up.
In the world, you're gonna fuck a lot of shit up.
So then he says,
that's not how time works.
Right. So then he says, you're Hector 2, that is Hector 1. You need to get Hector 1 here so that I can take care of him, so that I can kill him, and then you can live with your wife and go back to your normal life or whatever. Yes. And he's immediately like, okay.
It also does my favorite thing. This is like one of my favorite tropes, especially in like time travel movies or like movies that takes like any sort of critical thinking, but where the smart guy, like he basically does the thing where he like, you know, he folds the paper in half and he puts like a pencil through it to like explain like the fucking dumbass shit going on. Like,
yes,
he like draws this stupid little line. He's like, "You're the X here, and you're the X here," and I'm like, "Okay, all right, I get it. You're trying to dumb it down, but that's like the dumbest."
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess like I don't know. Maybe he should have gone dumber because Hector, man,
wasn't really getting it. Because then he calls the fucking house like a dumbass right after he has that talk. Like, why are you doing that? He just spoke to you about this.
He's like, "Who's that motherfucker with my wife?"
Yeah, and you're like, doesn't he look a little bit familiar to you? Well, okay. So what I love about this is like
I love this. This is great.
So the Hector 2 and the Hector 2 stuff is probably my favorite part of this whole thing, because now all the crazy shit that we bought into, Hector 2 is like, oh shit, now I have to try and recreate all this shit and try and make it the exact same as it was for me. And it's just, I love the logistics of trying to put all these dumb traps in place to make Hector 1 fall for it, which is pretty easy now that we know how dumb Hector 1 is. But I love how everything comes together when he gets in the crash, and then that's how his blood with the white liquid mixes to make his bandage the fucking this crazy pink mask thing. And he just randomly runs into that girl, and I love when he just like, here, just stand right there and put your head down. She's like, what? Why? And he's like, just do it. And just the ludicrousy of everything that's happened, and then to try and like stumble his way through it as a kind of a dumb dude is great. It's so much fun. And then, you know, and then the twist again. So the first act is like a horror movie, just your basic horror movie. You're like, oh shit, who's this guy coming after him, stabbing him and chasing him, and you're on edge, and it's directed like that, and it's not like played for laughs. Like, there's real tension built up because you're with Hector 1, and then Hector 2, it's a little bit more of like a mystery, but kind of like a comedy, just like, like, oh, here we go, we gotta do all this dumb shit. Yeah. And then
Hector 2, I just want to say this.
Yes, please.
Hector 2, when he does the hand binoculars
So
like,
good.
At that point, he's full on, like, he needs to be in concussion protocol. He's like Wes Welker and Danny Amendola, like, combined, like, career concussions at this point. He's fallen down 7 hills.
Yes.
He's like the second version of himself.
Yeah.
He needs the blue tent immediately. Like, the second that he does, like, the hand, like the fucking hand binoculars, like, okay, like, he has no idea what's going on around him. Like, his cognitive skills are 0 at this point.
And it makes sense. You know, it adds up.
Yes.
It is great, and it really,
it's
like...
ahead of its time.
It is ahead of its time.
We weren't thinking about it in
right.
2007.
That's true. And then he, like, the more he gets his ass kicked and the more he falls down, the more that shit stays with him, too. Like, his face just keeps getting more swelled up, more and more swelled up throughout the movie. But then he chases Hector away, and then he tries to go back to get the girl that he made strip. So then he's chasing after her because she's a loose end or whatever. And, well, she goes into his house, and he's just trying to calm her down. And then there's an accident that happens, and he realizes it was his wife and not the girl. So then he's like, well, now we got to go back again and prevent this from happening. And so he goes back to the scientist guy to try and go back again. And then you find out that, well, there was actually a Hector 3 that was here before you that told me not to let you go back because it didn't work out the way you were supposed to. And then it kind of turns into a mystery and a sci-fi and a little bit of horror at that point too, where it's like, how could it be any worse than, you know, my wife dying? Like, I have to go back. And then he goes back, and so now that we're into what did you think about the Hector 3 storyline?
Hector 3, at this point, you're sort of ready for, like, the cards to start turning.
Yeah.
Because you're at this point, I was kind of getting tired of going through the motions of, like,
sure.
Okay, I've seen this. I get it. You know, he's doing what Hector 2 did, you know, just now, because you're basically you're replaying the same scenes just from a different vantage point.
Yeah, Back to the Future 2 style.
Yes. So the Hector 3 stuff was good because I think just like the audience, like, he's sort of over it now.
He is, yeah.
He kind of checks out.
He's like, oh, whatever, fuck it.
And to your point, yes, he, like, his face, like, his face looks like the baseball that was on Hasim Rahman's face after he fought Lennox Lewis. Like just a giant, like,
yes.
I don't even, just like a golf ball coming out of his head.
Like, you're like, I don't even know how you can see right now, dude.
Yeah, like, he's got to, like, find a new cut man or something because it's not going good. I might have stopped the fight at that point.
Yeah,
but,
definitely.
He was down to get into the machine one more time, and it's kind of good to see him, like, pull it together. He's like, all right, this fucking shit. Like, I've seen this. Like,
he's like, Hector 2, you fucking dumbass.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, it's
it turns a lot of things on its head.
I didn't actually see the switcheroo coming at the end. And I was a little bit, I don't know. Do you think it's a better movie if his wife does die in the end?
I mean, it's more impactful, and it's probably a little bit more predictable and a little bit more of, like, traditional sci-fi. Like, don't fuck around, don't play with this shit, or bad things are gonna happen, you know?
Oh, yeah, no, I like that.
So it's a little bit, it kind of, like, turns that expectation around on you.
You're pro get in the machine.
I am.
Like, no, let's fucking do this, right?
Yeah, because, I mean, I don't know, because, like, whatever. The first time he got in, it wasn't really by his doing, you know? And the second time, he was like, well, whatever, it'll just be a quick in and out, and then all of a sudden he was like, shit, I really fucked up.
The second time he lost his fucking mind.
Yes. And then he's like, well, why not one more time? You know, you're already there. Like, you're already fucked up.
Yeah.
Well, let's do it again. Why not?
The second one's like, hold my beer. Like,
yeah, exactly. So it's, you know, I like it, and I like the twist, and actually the first time I saw it, I remember this, and I'm not trying to flex on you people, you know, but when I first saw it, I was like, his wife wasn't wearing Converse, you know, she wasn't wearing Chuck Taylors, so I was like, that's clearly the girl. And maybe it's because I used to wear Chuck Taylor, so I just always recognized them in movies, but I was like, I don't think that's his wife. And, you know, I was right. Boom. Put a point on the board for me.
Yeah, so I guess I didn't necessarily see it coming. I sort of turned my brain off at this point, but I had registered earlier in the film that I'm like, wow, that looks like a lot like his wife.
Yeah.
Because at the start, like, I just automatically assume, I'm like, because you don't know, like, what the movie is about. Sure. I'm like, wait, is that his wife? You know, I sort of, like, you know, it's, this is another thing I was trying to keep track of. Did you keep track of the crimes? The movie's called Timecrimes.
I don't know
so I was trying to keep track of how many crimes were committed.
I think maybe one?
Well, hold on.
Let's go back in time here, and let me rethink that answer.
So we're talking breaking and entering 3 times?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Plus a hit and run.
Yeah.
Plus
vandalate.
Manslaughter?
Yeah. Yep.
It's sort of premeditated, right?
Yeah. I mean, yes, especially at the end.
It's kind of a lot of crimes.
It is a lot. Yeah, you're right. No, you're right.
It's a great title. I feel like if I was in the writer's room, this would be my title, and I'd be laughing as I left the room, like, I can't believe they went with it.
This is your fucking crock seller.
Fucking Timecrimes, yeah.
This is your crock seller, yeah.
I'm like, what do we got? We got time travel, we got crimes.
Boom.
Time crimes.
They're like, no, I think it should be, you're like, no, it's gotta be time crimes.
Yeah, it's gotta be time, yeah. I pull like the Sam Jackson where I'm like, no, if it ain't fucking snakes on a plane, I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah, but I do like how it turns stuff on its head. You know, I think that's what I really appreciate about it, because the first act is a horror. Second act is a mystery. It's kind of a comedy turned into a mystery, and the third act is just like...
It's like, the second act is like Evil Dead 2, almost.
Right, totally.
Not quite as like slapstick, but it's definitely going for it.
Yeah, and I kind of like the ending is the end. I kind of like the ending. You know, I like that it turned that expectation on its head, and that he just kind of like was like, look, fuck everybody else. I didn't want any part of this. And now
I'm truly shocked that he picked his wife instead of the younger woman, because
you would have made a different choice.
At that point, at that point, I was like, this is like, Hector has gone full dark side here. He's not going to capitalize.
I mean, what do you say to the police when they come? You know, I mean, does he just say some guy in red bandages came and push this woman off?
They leave a lot out there for Timecrimes too. So
coming soon, it could be us.
Right. I would love to head up the Timecrimes franchise. I think that
expanded
would be a lot
universe.
Of fun. Yes. I think there's a lot of time travel storylines that haven't been fully fledged out.
Speaking of Butterfly Effect, we could do it like Butterfly Effect 2 style. I don't know if you've seen this, but it's not good. And basically
what's worse, the Butterfly Effect 2 or Blair Witch Project 2?
Ooh.
I think I've seen both.
Ooh.
It's like, wasn't it Season of the Witch? Or no, wait, that's Halloween too.
Book of Shadows or something.
Yeah, it's like something like metal like that.
It's, boy, Blair Witch 2 is bad. And just like on premise alone, like you can't do a sequel to the Blair Witch. So
yeah, I think it came out like 8 months later, didn't it?
It wasn't that long, yeah. And when the director first wanted to do it, he wanted to do it as sort of a meta, almost like comedy, like almost
yeah, like
a little
Texas Chainsaw 2 or something.
Yeah, just like a lighter version, because the first one's such a phenomenal thing that he's like, you can't just do a straight up sequel to it. And the studio was like, no, we need it to be just a straight up sequel. So it's a mess. It's an awful film. Yeah, I mean, I think Butterfly Effect 2 has some like so bad it's good qualities, because the only thing that really ties it to the first one is that this random dude has the same shit where he goes back in time with memories, but I think it's from like a cassette tape or something, I don't know, and he reads a newspaper about Ashton Kutcher's dad or whatever, and that's the whole connection in the first one, is that he read a newspaper. And so, I mean, if we wanted to expand Timecrimes 2 out, it would just be that they would read a police report about police coming to a couple's house, and there was this random young girl dead, and they were just sitting out in the lawn, and then boom, there's our connection, and we're good to go. We're off and running. We can make whatever story we want.
Yeah, man. So, fun fact: the lead in Butterfly Effect 2.
Yeah.
Eric Lively, brother of Blake Lively.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. That is a fun fact.
That's a fun fucking fact, man.
Dude.
They don't get much funner than that.
Wow. And then Blake Lively, it's part of our Croc Seller universe, obviously. So it all comes full circle.
I'm assuming that she passed it up, and I think we need to, if she wants to email me, I have some ideas, and I think she needs a new agent.
Yep. Late night emails.
Every time, a couple weeks ago, I watched 47 Meters Down 2 Uncaged. It's fucking great. Every time I see one of those films, I just, I get fucking really frustrated when Blake Lively's not in it. And I'm telling you, it's not, we'll save it, because it won't be, I think we'll be talking about our girl, later on this year. I got high hopes for the rhythm section. I think it's going to make some noise here come Oscar season, and potentially season could be a double-double.
That's
could
right.
be the first best and worst picture. Just because it's not nominated doesn't mean it can't win.
Well, I mean, at the rate we're going, we probably won't talk about Oscar movies. We'll probably just be the Razzies. Yes, that's the plan anyway.
Yes. I don't know. Do you have anything else on Timecrimes?
Just go see it, especially if you like you said, if you're listening to the show, you probably have an interest in film, and it's just a fun one. This feels like a fucking college, film school pick of somebody, just like a really, like you said, not really talked about, but really fun movie. It's not super pretentious, and it's nice and paradoxical. You have some fun time travel shit, and it's just a good time, and it just turns genres on its head. So I think it's ultra rewatchable, and I'm so glad that we decided to talk about it, and I think more people should see it. So go watch it. It's a really good time.
There you have it.
And so now we're going to sink our teeth into this next film that you recommended me to watch.
Yes.
Called Dogtooth, directed by ya boy Yorgos Lanthimos. And the IMDb plot synopsis is 3 teenagers live isolated without leaving their house because their overprotective parents say they can only leave when their dog tooth falls out.
So first off, Yorgos Lanthimos, friend of the pod,
Yes.
I would say at this point.
Absolutely.
Director of The Lobster, The Favorite, Killing of a Sacred Deer. I think we've talked about all of those films, right?
In bits and pieces. I still haven't seen Killing of a Sacred Deer yet.
Oh, okay. Georgie. Georgie's in it. Going to war,
Yes.
Georgie. R.I.P. Georgie. So this film, if you haven't seen it, haven't heard it, this came out in 2009, and this was the first film that I had seen by Yorgos Lanthimos, and it was sort of before he started making a lot of noise with these really interesting, dark comedy, kind of like nothing else you've ever seen. And I thought it was sort of fun to revisit now because Dogtooth is sort of an amalgamation of a lot of his other films, just on a smaller scale. And it's also
Yeah, where do you start?
It sort of kind of is what I'm feeling right now, being completely isolated from the world. And I'll let you go from there and say what you will. What were your impressions of this film?
Yeah, so I had no idea what to expect. Yorgos, like you said, friend of the pod. Respect his art. Respect.
Big fan. He's a big fan.
He's a big fan, yeah. And I was excited to see it. I had no idea really what to expect. And it's just so art housey in a good way, in the best way possible. And there are a lot, but it isn't, what am I trying to say here? It's very art housey, but I don't really think it's pretentious. I don't really get that vibe from it, It's more earnest, I think, than what most people probably would perceive it to be. And I really dug the themes in it. Like, I think there are some pretty interesting underlying themes about, childhood and parenting in general. And
parenting, great film.
Just a really good parenting film. Yeah.
All my parents out there, go watch Dogtooth.
And take some
A
notes.
lot of good lessons.
Lessons, yeah. And it's just a lot of and the thing I like probably the most about it is that, there are a lot of big questions that come up and a lot of big whys, and we don't get the answers. And I like that. And we don't even really try to. And that's not the point. The point isn't the questions or the answers. It's just their reality in this really fucked up world. But they don't really know it's fucked up.
Do you think this is his most outrageous film? I think it's close. It's between this and The Lobster.
Yeah, I was going to say The Lobster is...
This is... so The Lobster is just, it's Dogtooth, but, The Lobster's on, a global scale.
Yeah.
Where everyone has just completely fucking lost their goddamn minds.
Yeah.
Because there's no proof in The Lobster that anyone fucking turns into an animal if they don't get married.
It's true, yeah. He has his dog, his brother that he says was his brother. It's just a dog, but you don't really know.
You don't. And honest to God, I think the first time I saw that film, I kind of bought it. I was like, oh yeah, it's a fucking dog right now. And I was like, oh yeah, Lobster, not a bad pick.
Yeah, right. They mate for life or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, because I remember when I watched this, I just saw it, and I was like, wow, that was something. And then it was a long time before I kind of came back to his work, and it makes a lot more sense now.
Sure.
Having seen some of his films and kind of like the way, like his like very dystopian sense of society and reality that kind of bleeds through into his films, where just like, it's that weird culty thing where I think it's like the fucking scariest shit where you just like, you start calling stuff names that it's not. Like, it's like, please hand me the telephone, and you get past the fucking pepper at the table. It's just like, that stuff scares me like so much more than, like sewer clowns or, it's like it's sort of like the Marcy Marley
That's exactly what I thought
Marlene thing where, it's just really like you're taking away these basic tenets away from human beings, and it just, oof.
Yeah, it gets in there, and but he does a great job of world building and making things very tactile and tangible. And, like I said earlier, I think I said it on our top 10 of the year, I said that lately I've realized that I've kind of been drawn more to aesthetics in film than like plot, and like aesthetics and performances, and this has got a heaping helping of that, and I appreciate it, and it really ingrains you in the world, and there's so many nice private moments that but it doesn't feel forced, and it doesn't feel like he's trying really hard to be like, look how weird this is, It's just, he does a really good job of setting the world. So I guess the main plot of this film is that there's a family, a mother, father, there's a son and two daughters. And these...
So I'm going to push back again a little bit against the IMDb description, because it says 3 teenagers. And I want to go ahead and say they're like
adults.
3 adults.
They're not teenagers. That's exactly what I was going to say. They're definitely in their 20s.
They're like my age, I think.
They're like, they are. Especially the eldest, as they call her.
Yes.
She's got to be in her 30s.
Yes.
Totally.
I would, the teenager, I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of a stretch. But they live in this house, and it's kind of off the beaten path. There's a huge fence around it, and the father's the only one who leaves. He leaves in his car to go to work. He works at some plant of some kind, like a nuclear plant or something. And then he comes back, and the kids do exercises, and they do random shit throughout the day, but they can't leave the property or the house. And so it's an opening where they are like, I suggest we play a game of endurance today, where we hold our hands under hot water and the faucet, and the last one to have their hand under the under the water wins, And you're like, man, is this just how they fill their day? Like every single day with nothing to do? And they have this weird, yes, the answer is yes.
The answer is absolutely yes.
And they have this weird hierarchy there where they do these little competitions, and they get stickers as points, and the stickers are like a currency in the household. And it sounds like I'm making this up. It sounds like...
It's honestly, it's like Step Brothers minus the jokes.
Yeah, it really is. And it's just strange. And I think one of the weirdest parts is when he brings an outside party, when the father brings a girl to the house for his son, and she's supposed, they don't really explain it, but that's kind of like his girlfriend, or supposed to be, or I don't really know. He just brings her to the house, and then the son just has sex with this girl, and then she leaves, and she works as a security guard at this plant. And I was thinking, like, man, how did he... I just really want to know the conversation that the dad had with her to try and get her. So, a couple things. I'm gonna buy you this beer, and then I'm gonna talk for a while, and you're just gonna listen. Okay, no questions. I got some kids. I got a house. They don't leave. My son's got to get it in. Would you be willing to provide him that service? That's how it went in my head.
Yeah, and I mean, that's like, it's not even the, like, it's probably not even like the 10 most, like, insane things in the film either.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Like, that seems like sort of sensible to me, honestly. Like, if you, there are like a lot of great, like, parenting moments here.
Yeah.
But it's really funny. Like, okay, so I'll use The Lobster because that's a film that you've seen as well.
Yeah.
But you really start to get the sense, the irony in the Lanthimos films are always, like, tangible.
Yes.
It's always, like, something that you can see exactly in front of you. Like, when John C. Reilly in the Lobster is masturbating, his hand is put in a toaster that he masturbates with.
Yeah.
And it's set on fire. And it's like the same thing here. Like, the daughter, the eldest, who's watching Jaws and Rocky, which is incredible. Yeah. When she's caught doing this, she's just smacked repeatedly with the VHS tape. Like, it's so literal. Like all of the lessons here. It's like an actual thing you can see that's drawn on the screen. It's really interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
fucked up,
but interesting. And it's like, what do you take away from that? You know, it's almost like a distilled way of taking these big complex issues and kind of providing it in this different lens, you know, to see it through. And I'm not even sure, I don't really think it's the point, but I don't even know exactly what he's trying to comment on, or what, if there's even like a point to this whole film. Like, the arc of it is really like, the eldest kind of she's frustrated because her, she's got a brother and a sister, and she's the oldest, but her brother has more stickers than her. It seems like he has more leverage, or it's kind of easiest for him. You know, he seems like the favorite. And
he seems to be like a bit of a fucking brown noser.
He does, yeah, totally.
Like, he spends a lot of time out in the fence,
totally,
talking about how well he
cleans the car,
hoses down the car.
Yeah.
And I would be fucking cutting his ass too in the middle of the living room.
Yeah. So, like, yeah, so you can see her frustration and how she feels like she doesn't belong there. And
he seems like a cuck.
He totally does, yeah. Wow. I wasn't expecting to hear that word today. But he... is he not
a cuck? Is that not that?
I mean, he probably is. I don't know. I mean, it takes... One thing is that we see his actual penis, and we see the... that's a weird scene. We see him getting...
Male nudity, man.
Yeah. Uncircumcised, too.
Give me a bad film that has male nudity.
That's right. That's our standard. Doesn't exist. Yep, you're right.
It doesn't exist.
And so you can see her frustration, kind of feel that, because this world is insane. Which I guess, like, being a kid, like, the world is a crazy place. I mean, crazy shit happens. And we do follow rules that seem like they're, you know, pedantic or just don't really make sense to us at the time when we're kids, because we don't know the world. So we're like, well, why do you do that? I don't know. It's just what happens, you know? And it's not fair. And then she rightly feels like she's outgrown it because, it's just she's not not having fun there, you know, and she feels like she wants to do more, and so the arc is that she forcibly removes her dog tooth, and runs away. Yes.
The other thing I was thinking about,
is that proper medical practice, by the way? The way she did that.
Yeah, if you're fucking Ed Helms from The Hangover, maybe. That's
That'll work just fine.
Honestly, he's not a real doctor. The other thing I was thinking about with this, because some of the, like, one film that kept coming back besides Jorgen Lanthimos's other works was, like, the Step Brothers thing.
Sure.
It's like a more nefarious Step Brothers, but also the other thing I was thinking about too is when you typically see this sort of deal where like a family is isolated and there's like the education is just is truly bottled into like whoever, you know, the head of the household is, like, yeah, we tend to think of these people as being like ugly or inbred, or like I always think of like the Sawyer family, like the Texas Chainsaw,
yeah.
Like, and it's always really ugly and not, like, pretty to look at. And I really admire here that he makes, like, he basically, like, every, you know, the kids in this are, like, GQ models. Like, they're gorgeous. Yeah. And it makes you, I don't know, they're not repulsing in the way that we might think, like, other, you know, because they're completely underdeveloped and, like, not ready for society. Like, yeah, the eldest gets away in the end, but, like, what is she supposed to do, you know? Right. There is nothing for her in the world. Yeah. And it's, like, a crazy thing where it's, like, this kind of perception that we have, and, like, we sort of hold. Like, I don't know. It's weird, right?
Yeah. It is weird. Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't even consider that, but you're right, and we kind of get, so there are little nuggets that Yorgos lays down, little breadcrumbs, which I love, you know, for people that can pay attention and you know, get the benefit of those. So there's a scene where pretty much the only scene that isn't at the house for the most part. There's like, I guess there's like two, when he's at work and he's speaking to his coworker, probably his boss, it seemed like, and the boss was asking him about what kind of floor tiles he should get or whatever, and he makes a comment to the father saying, like, you know, oh, why don't we hang out more, you know? Why don't we ever go out and do anything? And he's like, yeah, I know, I asked my wife to have you over for a beer, and, you know, and the guy's like, yeah, I understand, it's tough, that, you know, she can't leave the house, and then she's in a wheelchair and stuff. And you're like, huh, okay. Well, she's not, you know, at the house, she's not in a wheelchair, and she's walking around, whatever. And you're like, okay, so that's his excuse for why his wife never leaves. But was that based on reality, you know, or not? And why the wife is the most interesting character in this whole thing to me, because the dad is like, has some weird, like, I don't know why this is what he wants his life to be, but
she's totally complicit.
Just totally, yeah, she is.
She's loving it.
She loves it.
It's like every wife where like the husband has been keeping, like a family of 3 in their basement for 20 years, yeah. And like and all of a sudden it comes out and the wife's like, oh. Yeah. Well, I had no idea. Like, yeah. Like, that's fucking bullshit. Like, yeah. There's no way.
Absolutely.
And she's, like, the same way, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and she's loving it, and that's her. But it almost seems like she would rather just have younger kids, because he makes a comment later saying that she doesn't spend enough time with them, and it seems like she's almost bored because they're older, and and maybe they don't need her as much, or maybe that's what she feels, so she wants more kids, and then all of a sudden, you know, she's pregnant. But so I just don't, I mean, thankfully, I don't understand that mindset, I guess. But I'm like, it's just fascinating.
Makes me feel better.
Yeah. I'm glad I could put you at ease.
Like, I totally relate.
Like, I totally get it. I wish I was there right now. I wish I had a spouse that was like that. Man. But I guess she kind of gets power from it too, in a way. But, because, like, he's just like, that's just his beliefs, and he is weird. This is the way he wants to live his life, and, like, whatever. That's fucked up. But for her to be so complicit in it is weird to me. And you can't blame the kids, obviously. But then another interesting nugget is the brother storyline, you know. So it's so interesting because you really literally don't know what's true and what's false about this world, because we're basically seeing it from the kid's point of view, and, you know. So, but when they talk about, like, you know, when he's talking to the fence, when they're, you know, he's washing the car, and he's basically saying, like, I washed this car better than you ever could, and I only forgot to vacuum the mats once. And, you know, talking like his brother is on the other side of the fence, and then you see the eldest sneak bread and throw it over the fence. Presumably for a brother, and they make some mention of it before too. I think he says, does the dad say that the brother voluntarily left or something, and then couldn't survive out there? I don't know. But that's interesting, because I'm like, I don't think that the dad would just make up a story about them having a brother that left, you know. So you're kind of like, there was probably another kid there that took off, you know, and did something similar happen before with the Dogtooth, you know, and him leaving. Did you pick up on that?
Yeah, I mean, they don't say a whole lot.
Yeah.
But it's heavily implied that something happened, and I mean, all they do in, like, whenever their cover is, you know, about to be blown, is they just fucking make up some crazy ass lie.
Yeah.
And so, or teaching moment.
The cat.
And yeah, I don't know. I think this film's interesting, especially I think if you're into any of Lanthimos' other films.
Yeah.
This is it's really fun to go back and kind of look at it, because it's sort of, I feel like it's probably like maybe his breakout, but yeah, I mean, the performances are really fun, they're really cool. The lead, Angeliki Popolia,
she's is that the eldest?
The eldest.
Okay.
Is amazing. And she is actually, she shows up again. She shows up a couple times in the Lanthimos universe. She is, oh my god, she's the guy that Colin Farrell, the chick that, like, doesn't have a soul. That Colin
the
Farrell
really
ends up
mean
with,
one,
lobster,
yeah.
that kills his brother dog.
Oh, that's her?
That's her. Yeah,
wow.
That's her. Yeah. Yeah, she's incredible.
Wow.
She's so good.
Wow.
She's so good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's fun. I think it's an interesting movie to check out. And this is what our society will look like if we're still dealing with this in 20 years.
Yeah, so, absolutely. So let's hopefully.
Isolation is bad.
It is
we
bad.
Need people.
Yes.
People make people. We keep each other sane.
Yeah,
even though it doesn't feel like that all the time.
You know, we're pack animals, and you know we need it. You know, and I like that we're talking about these films, because I feel like this is each of these films is one that the other one we've heard of, but just never really seen, and it's kind of an underground, lesser known film, and those are fun to check out. So if you got time on your hands and, you're looking for something, these are some interesting picks, some movies that you don't really see all that often talked about. So those are the ones that pique our interest. And I think that really it's like, they just bring up a lot of interesting points and a lot of things to think about. And Dogtooth especially is like, this isn't what we want, I don't think. I don't think we want this future.
It's not what we want.
It's not what we want. Yeah, so let's try to avoid that if we can.
You're correct.
So, thank you. So, yeah, check them out. And then, fucking let us know when you have and what you thought about them, You can find me on Twitter.
Give us some recommendations. We're bored as fuck.
Yeah, totally. Send it in. Let us know what you want us to talk about. We are
just as bored as you.
Maybe even more. Yeah, I would think so. And, the problem with us, our type of people, is we think a lot. We think too much, and so when you don't have as many things to put your brain in the blender about, it can make the days really long. So, but not to end on a sour note, you can hit me on Twitter at LukeLarson89. Find this podcast at L Squared Podcast on Twitter and on Instagram. We're on Facebook at L2 Podcast. We're on SoundCloud. We're on YouTube. Hit us up. Let us know how you guys are doing. Stay safe. Be mindful. And just for the love of God, don't fucking start a family in the middle of nowhere and wall off your house and make up weird rules and never let your kids leave. If you find yourself in a situation where you see a naked woman in your trees and you have a hot-ass wife, maybe think twice before going out there. And then if you do get stabbed by a dude, don't go hide in a tub with a random scientist. I don't think that's your best bet. So
I want to say, though, I will lick you in exchange for toilet paper. I'm running dangerously low, and I will do that. I will do that for you, okay? I will lick you if I can get toilet paper back, but only if I can get toilet paper back, because that's what I need right now, okay? So that's what I got, okay? The offer is on the table, and
do you feel disgusted?
No, I'm not repulsed at all.
No, I'm ready to go.
I need toilet paper.
Well, I have these paper towels. Will that work? Is that good enough?
I tell you what, man. I tweeted this out. I feel like Tom Hardy at the end of Dunkirk. The way he sort of just kind of starts the movie on empty fuel. Yeah. I feel like that. Like I started this epidemic with 2 rolls,
oh, no.
And I've been the tension is high right now. And we're not quite at the point where I'm silently flying through the sky.
Right. Not quite there.
But goddamn it, we are getting there, okay? Oof. And we're getting there to the point where I did some research on bidets. Yeah. And even those things are 2 weeks back ordered. And damn. God forbid you do any research about bidets, because
that's not a good
you're gonna start thinking that you have we been doing this shit wrong the whole time?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. If some shit fell on the carpet floor, would you just use a dry disposable towel to clean it up? No. Right. You want some moisture there. You want some, little something. Get the suds going, huh?
Well, do you have
not to mention the environmental impact of toiletry.
That's true.
I'm
Well, do you have a power washer or anything that you could borrow?
Well, that's the backup, but for now.
You don't want to take skin off, though. That's the only thing.
For now, it's going to be the Home Depot. I'm gonna throw on a safety mask, and I'm gonna have to risk it. So.
Well, start throwing those bows and get that TP, my friend. Stay safe out there.
Stay safe to you too.